So sings my soul. Praise my God of love and life. So sings my soul. The joy is...
The title of my talk today is Chutes and Ladders. It was interesting to me. I'm going to talk about the two big issues kind of facing this community right now. The first is COVID. That when the Delta variant came along and they started saying, well, you know what, we're going to have to go back to indoor masking. I saw people freaking out that I just thought it was so bizarre. Most progress in life is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I'm just all, okay, so we have to wear masks indoors. No big deal. But some people acted, the anger of some people about having to wear a mask again, the anger that other people are feeling about the pressure to get a vaccine, the anger, I just don't understand it. Because it's so spiritually unintelligent. The truth of the matter is, there is a process taking place. COVID is an effect. What we teach in this teaching is that there is cause and effect. COVID is not causing everything. The spiritual conditions, this is what we teach in this teaching here. The spiritual conditions of fear and division create war, poverty, and pestilence. And it manifests as all kinds of things, such as pandemics, depression, and seemingly endless fighting. But what is the antidote? The antidote is love. Love, forgiveness, because the same law that creates these conditions can create the healing, and beyond that, can create a better world than was before. There is a principle in spiritual teachings. You're probably familiar with the story of Job, most familiar. Lost everything. And people said, well, why don't you curse God? And he didn't. He held on to his faith, and his life was restored to even greater than it was before. Now, no one is saying he had a good time. This is that psalm, I walk through the valley of shadow of death. 1,000 to my right, 10,000 to my left. Well, it's called the valley of the shadow of death for a reason. It's not called the valley of love and lilies. There are seemingly scary moments in life. And we're in one of them. It's the last pandemic, the big one. AIDS is a pandemic, and that's a whole other issue which I will talk about at another time. But the last general population pandemic, the 1918 one, that lasted 4 years? 4 years. And it was never talked about afterwards. If you notice, it's not in pop culture, it's not depicted in movies, it was not in the novels of the day. 50 million people lost their bodies, died around the world. 700,000 here in America, and it's never mentioned. Which is a shame, actually, because I'm sure they were over it, and by that time they were ready for the Roaring 20s, But, they made it through one day at a time. They didn't have the internet, and they didn't have, television. There are people so full of fear that all they were asked to do was to stay at home for a couple of months and watch their favorite shows on television and order in from Amazon. They couldn't do it. They could not show up to be lazy. They were so full of fear. When it says, resist ye not evil in the Bible, it's not saying that let evil flourish. It's telling you that resistance is what keeps it tied to us. If we had gone into acceptance and say, okay, there's a pandemic happening, and then all showed up and did the right thing in the spirit of love and compassion and community, we would be in a much different place than we are today. But the real issue is even beyond just what's happening with COVID in the physical world. It's the division that is keeping us. It's the hatred, not within us here in this community, but in general in society, is keeping us from moving through this together. The pandemic is like a giant escape room where the only way for all of us to get out, or any of us to get out, is if we all work together. And it's the fear and the division that is keeping us from doing the right basic things that science is telling us to do. This is not a teaching that denies science. If you look at this beautiful mural behind here, there are images of religion, images of philosophy, and images of science. There is divine intelligence in math. 1 + 1 = 2. Nowadays, I'm not sure we can even agree on that. But in order to be people of love, we need to be people of love during the good times and the bad. So where we're at in the circle, you know, things go up, things go down. There are wonderful, amazing vaccines, and there are people, by the way, who cannot take them because they have prior health conditions. So it's important for everyone to have compassion. There are some people who are scared of the vaccine, and it's important to have compassion. Yelling at people and throwing hate at them is not going to get them to want to, you know, take care of themselves or other people. Just like nobody is, I mean, it's a piece of cloth on your face. It's not a muzzle. But it's amazing how, you know, I thought it was like an opportunity to show fashion. I have masks in every color. I saw it as a creative opportunity. There are storms of life. You know, as the psalm says, there is, unfortunately, in the land of earth, periods of war, pestilence, and poverty. They've happened before. They might happen again until we are healed as a consciousness, as a planet. But we can remain people of love. So, what I was thinking about when, you know, this fourth wave, you know, by the way, this is not the way I wanted to learn the Greek alphabet. I don't know about anybody else. You know, so we're, you know, but this fourth wave started, I thought, okay, well, it's like we collect, you know, if you know the game Chutes and Ladders, and that's where the topic of it's like we collectively landed on 72, and there's a big old chute down to 37. You might know the game is that you start, you roll the dice, you go, and if you're lucky, you land on a ladder, and you get to jump up, and then if you land on a chute, you have to slide all the way back down. And we're all aiming to get to 100. Now, we're doing that collectively as a species, as a planet, and we also do that in our individual lives. Now, I've been studying a lot of Eastern religion as part of my ministerial studies, and they would say that we are the karmic cycle of birth, life, sickness, death, and then rebirth, you know, takes us to a new point, starting point on that giant board game of life. Now, some religious scientists believe in reincarnation. Some don't believe that we reincarnate back into this world, but it's the same principle. We keep evolving towards a state of enlightenment, of nirvana, where we are always aware of our oneness with the universe, and then we manifest accordingly. You know, at some point, you know, we teach immortality in this church. We are very clear that we are immortal beings, every single one of us. We do not teach everlastingness of a physical form. Every enlightened master has eventually shed their bodies. You know, Buddha became enlightened, he lived for another 45 years, and he left. Why would he stay? He wanted to be free. He wanted to fly. You know, Jesus resurrected from the dead and stayed around for a while and said, okay, bye, you can take it from here. Maybe if he had, in hindsight, he maybe wished he had stayed a little longer, but, you know, we will shed these forms, but our lives will go on. And by the way, they were in existence before we were born into this body. This form comes after the idea. The idea of who you are came before you came into physical form. So we're playing this game of Chutes and Ladders. So whether we reincarnate back into this world, whether we go back into somewhere else in the space-time continuum, whether we go on to another plane of existence, you know, my house has many mansions, Jesus said, we'll find that out eventually. It does seem that we do incarnate on Earth without the memory of prior lives, consciously. They're probably deep down. In fact, I'm sure they're deep down. But we keep going, you know, the circle game is, can you be happy, joyous, and free, no matter where you are on the chute or ladder? Because that's the way to, and this is what is not in the board game Chutes and Ladders. By prayer and meditation, you can extend the ladders of your life, and you can shorten the chutes. They're fixed on the board game, but they're not fixed in the universe. Now, if you are on a wheel, we're talking about circles, if you're on the outside of the wheel, think of it as like if somebody just plodding along through life, who sits down and watches Fox News or another news channel, you know. Yeah, we know these people, like several hours every day. It's on all the time in the background. They're totally caught up in fear. They're totally caught up in division and the football teamization, for lack of a better adjective, of life and what's going on. And you're on the outer part of the circle. That's a very nauseating place to be if you've ever been to Magic Mountain. You know, when I was 17, it was fun to be on these roller coasters. Whee! Now it's like... But as we pray and meditate towards center, you experience a much smaller shift. So that when these things happen, you treat them with good humor. There's that wonderful story in the New Testament where Paul, I think by the time his name was Paul, and one of his fellow apostles was like, they were in prison, and they were laughing and full of good humor. And the centurion was like, what's going on here? They were free despite being in prison. So no matter what happens with this variant, if we go through the whole alphabet, we can be people of good humor. We can continue to put into our individual use of the law thoughts of love, thoughts of joy, thoughts of peace, thoughts of abundance, thoughts of wholeness. And that can be the experience of our lives no matter what is happening all around us. And that's that we can experience that no matter what is manifesting for us. You can have all the money in the world and be completely miserable. You don't know people like that, I can introduce them to you. And you can have no money temporarily. Henry Ford used to say, oh, I've been broke many times, but I've never been poor. You know, there are certain things in life that go up and down. You know, if we base our self-esteem and our happiness on our credit score, on our waist size, on our age, or anything on the externals, there's always going to be somebody on the externals who we think is better than us, or younger than us, or has more money than us, and we're going to live awfully miserable people. But that's not who we are. We are spirit. You are love in itself, and you did not come into this lifetime just to worry about effect. You came to be cause. And we all here today, and that goes for whoever is listening on tape or watching from home, we have made an agreement at this point in space and time to do nothing less than heal individually and collectively and be a bright shining light and take the world with us. I've seen people post questions on social media like, have we waited too long? Is it too late to save the planet from climate change? Is it too late? Is the pestilence going to wipe us out and we just didn't stop it in time? And there is no too late in the universe. But we do have to turn towards the divine. There is that principle in Greek drama of Deus ex machina, where all hope is lost, everything seems finished, and at the last minute, God comes in. And it wasn't that God was waiting in the wings for everything to fall apart. It wasn't until all hope was lost and they gave up, they were finally surrendered enough to let God come through. Well, we don't have to lose everything. We don't have to get to that point to evoke what is already present. God is already here. We don't teach that God is out there somewhere. At any moment, we can evoke and plug in. Right now, we're like lamps. Plug in to your divine source, and it's within you. Nobody in this room should be like saying to God out there, please help. I mean, you can, because God is out there, but you're actually talking to the inner God. That's where God is. God is in you. And here's something else to note. You've probably heard that we're all one. We are one. We're oneness. That's one of the foundational beliefs of this teaching. But it's more than just that we're one. God only has one begotten Son, according to Ernest Holmes and according to the great masters. That's all of us. So at the deepest levels, it's not even that we're one. Now, we know by physics, at the microscopic level, there's no place where I stop and Helen starts. And there's no place where she stops and, I'm sorry, I can't see, I don't have my glasses on. Is that,
Deborah.
Oh, Deborah, oh, so sorry. It's so good to see you. I'm staying away, that's why, but that's good. I see. The lights here are really bright, so I can't, just know I can't actually see you. I'll give something away. I can't actually see you, but I can hear you and feel you. So please keep sending the love. Is that there's no place where Helen and Deborah stop and start. But be deeper than that. You're not only one with each other, you literally are each other. All that God is, you are. All that God is, I am. All that God is, Elizabeth is. But that's true collectively. And if we really knew that other people were not just, we were not just one with them, we were not just roommates on the planet, we were actually one with them, but deeper than that, we literally are each other, including the people we've never met in the third world, what we call the third world. We're all each other. Would we not behave with more compassion? So we are like, there's a light inside of our heart, and it shines out. And so the first person who should heal from our own love is who? Us. We can't transmit something we haven't got. So, we don't teach selfishness in this church, but we do teach self-reliance, we do teach self-care, and we do teach perfect self-expression. So you should have an amazing, wonderful life based on the power of God within you. And if you don't, we have classes, we have practitioners, there are teachings, there are ways to help you do that. And then, but we need more than just self-reliance. Then we then need to extend that out in love. Love to the world, love to people who need help and assistance, because who you are is love. And you incarnated at this point, in space, in time, to express love for you and for every, and I don't want to say other person, for you within every person. Because it is you. So there's time to save the planet. But it requires all of us, not just the people in this room, to have a shift. Do you know why they called it the greatest generation in World War II? From the Great Depression in 1929 till the end of World War II, that was 16 years of shared sacrifice for the common good to pull together. It's only been a year and a half and people are telling me they can't stay home and watch television and wear a piece of cloth on their face. I mean, what are they going to say about this generation? We're the most selfish generation, the most self-involved generation. The truth of the matter is there is no such thing as taking care of yourself at the expense of someone else because there is no someone else. We're all one. And the second thing I want to talk on briefly, because I always say leave them wanting more, is so the homeless. Now, not people in this room, and Elizabeth, what you had said about blessing each and every one. I've heard people in this town talk about the homeless problem as if they're the walking dead, as if they're this entity. Yeah. Every single person who is temporarily unhoused is a perfect, whole, and complete idea in the mind of God.
That's right.
Now, there is a mental atmosphere that is individually creates a person's temporary conditions. All conditions are temporary, by the way, including winning the lottery. And then there's a collective. Well, we can change that. In fact, you don't need the whole world in agreement. You just need a majority. One consciousness, one vote. So what I'm asking us to do with homeless people, again, I'm not saying what we should do for public policy, because that's not my role. But we need to love them. We need to see them as divine.
That's right.
Just as divine as me, just as divine as you. Yes. We need to be able to look into their eyes and say, say, I know who you are. And even if you have like a crazy homeless person who who is not, for whatever reason, is not having access to the social care and the social services they need, and so they don't have access to their psych meds. You know, you may stay on the other side of the street. I'm being real here. If, like, you know, we're not an unintelligent faith, but that doesn't mean we don't think and know the truth about them. I will conclude with this, and then we're going to do a quick process. The legendary practitioner Ventura Papke. The legend is, now, the rumor about her was that God would not dare not manifest her word. She was so powerful. And the rumor is, not the rumor, the true story is that she was in an Arizona hospital, you know, doing her regular hospital visitations, and then she ran and called the World Ministry of Prayer and saying, I need a prayer. I just saw a sick person. And what's amazing about that story is that she was in a hospital. She never saw sick people. So she was so in tune that she knew that if she saw sickness, she was off. And she got the prayer that she needed. If we see poor people or homeless people, and certainly if we see them as a collective entity, you know, it's our thinking that it's off and needs to change. By the way, you know, Finland solved this problem. You know what they did? They provided shelter. You know, it's our collective mismanifestations can change. They just require us to think at a higher level than the misthinking individually and collectively that caused the problem. That's true, because you know, we're talking about COVID and homelessness today, but we could be talking about something else tomorrow. And if there's nothing to talk about, the media will manufacture something for us to talk about. You may have noticed that even during the good times, got to come up with something to get the clicks, got to come up with something to get you to tune in. Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back with the latest outrage that isn't worth your time and energy. So I want you to all turn within right now. We're going to do just very brief visualization. I want you to imagine a ball of light in your heart. And that light is love, the infinite, all-powerful, everywhere present divine love. And it extends and expands outward. It circulates through your blood to every part of your body temple, healing everything that needs healed. You can imagine this light shining out from the sun into your life. It shines into every relationship so that when people see you, they see the inner light through your eyes, through your voice, through your actions. It shines on your finances, on places where you live, the community that you're in, the work that you do. Your light and my light join together, and it exponentially grows. And it lights up this entire neighborhood. And it keeps growing, and it lights up this entire city. It lights up the entire county, and the state, and the nation. And it keeps expanding. It joins with light everywhere. And this field of light circles the planet. From this light, this higher thinking of divine love, we make higher choices in our thinking, in our consciousness, in our action. We look into others' eyes and we see, you are me, and I am you. This light, this field of light is where we are one. And we now do the things we need to do to heal the planet. We now do the things we need to do to heal homelessness. We now do the things we need to do to heal any sense of division within our communities, within our country, within our world. For we choose the kingdom of heaven that is always at hand. So let this be the day where the circle is a still point within each one of us. And as we move up the ladders, the ever-increasing longer ladders, and ride down the ever shorter chutes to the place where we reach 100 on the board of life, we remember who we are, now and always. And we give thanks. We allow it to be. And so it is. Thank you.